Rosa Chen was wiping down tables in the hospital cafeteria when she saw him, a tired man in expensive clothes, standing alone and looking lost. While other workers whispered and stared, Rosa did what she always did. She helped. She gave him a free sandwich and coffee. She sat with him and listened to his troubles. She treated him like any human being who needed kindness. The man said his name was Eddie, and he seemed grateful for her simple act of compassion. Rosa had no idea she had just helped one of the most famous people in the world. She didn't know that this stranger would soon turn her entire life upside down. The next day, Rosa's cruel boss fired her for breaking company rules. 8 years of perfect work meant nothing. Her daughter's college dreams seemed impossible now. Rosa thought her life was over. But Rosa was wrong. Dead wrong. Who was the mysterious man she helped that day? And what incredible shock was waiting for her that would change everything she thought she knew about her future? The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past 8 years. Rosa Chen rolled over and hit the snooze button with practiced precision. 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes to pretend she didn't have to get up and face another day of serving food to people who barely noticed she existed. But 5 minutes passed too quickly, as they always did. Rosa pushed herself out of bed and padded quietly to the bathroom. Her reflection in the cracked mirror showed tired brown eyes and graying hair that she kept pulled back in a simple ponytail. 47 years old, and sometimes she felt like she was 70. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the old refrigerator. Through the thin walls, she could hear Mrs. Patterson's television next door. The elderly woman never seemed to sleep. Rosa made a mental note to check on her later with some leftover soup from work. In the tiny kitchen, Rosa started the coffee maker and opened the refrigerator. 2 eggs, half a loaf of bread, and a container of milk that would expire tomorrow. She cracked 1 egg into the pan for herself and left the other for Lily's breakfast. Her daughter needed the protein more than she did. While the egg cooked, Rosa counted the bills stacked on the counter. Rent was due in 12 days. The electric bill sat underneath, marked with a red "Final Notice" stamp. Her paycheck from the hospital would cover rent, but she'd need her evening shift at Murphy's grocery store to handle the electric bill. There was never quite enough money, no matter how hard she worked. Rosa ate her egg quickly and washed the dish. She peeked into Lily's bedroom, where her 16-year-old daughter slept peacefully. College brochures covered Lily's desk like colorful dreams waiting to come true. MIT, Stanford, University of Michigan. Each one cost more money than Rosa made in 2 years. "I'll figure it out, baby," Rosa whispered to her sleeping daughter. "Somehow, I'll make it work." The walk to Medicor Hospital took 23 minutes. Rosa had timed it perfectly over the years. She knew every crack in the sidewalk, every shortcut through the parking lots. In winter, she left earlier to account for snow. In summer, she enjoyed the quiet morning air before the city woke up. The employee entrance was always locked until 5:45 a.m., so Rosa waited outside with the other early shift workers. Janet from housekeeping waved hello. Miguel from maintenance nodded and smiled. They were good people who worked hard jobs that most folks didn't think about. "Morning, Rosa," Janet said, pulling her sweater tighter against the October chill. "How's Lily doing with her college applications?" "She's working so hard," Rosa replied, her face lighting up with pride. "She submitted 3 more applications last week. Her grades are perfect, and her science teacher says she has real talent." "That girl's gonna do great things," Miguel added. "You raised her right." Rosa's heart swelled with love and worry at the same time. Lily was brilliant and kind, and deserving of every opportunity in the world. But Opportunities cost money, and money was something Rosa never had enough of. The security guard unlocked the doors at exactly 5:45 a.m. Rosa badged in and headed to the cafeteria kitchen. The morning routine was always the same. Start the coffee, machines, fire up the grills, prep the breakfast items. By 6:30 a.m., she'd have everything ready for the doctors, nurses, and visitors who would start trickling in. "Chen!" Mr. Garrett's voice cut through the quiet kitchen like a rusty knife. "You're 3 minutes late getting the coffee started." Rosa looked at the clock. 5:52 a.m. The coffee was brewing, sending its rich aroma through the air. She'd started it right on schedule, just like always. "The coffee's ready, Mr. Garrett," Rosa said quietly. "Same time as every day." Her supervisor was a thin man with pale skin and mean eyes who seemed to enjoy finding fault with everyone. In 8 years, Rosa had never heard him say a kind word to any employee. "Don't talk back to me," Mr. Garrett snapped. "I've got my eye on you, Chen. Budget cuts are coming, and I need workers who follow rules, not ones who think they know better." Rosa bit her tongue and nodded. She needed this job. Lily needed her to keep this job. Fighting back wasn't worth the risk, no matter how unfair Mr. Garrett could be. The breakfast rush started at 7 a.m. Rosa took her position behind the counter, serving scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast to hungry hospital staff. She knew most of their names and orders by heart. Dr. Williams liked his coffee black with 2 sugars. Nurse Rodriguez always asked for extra fruit. The security guards preferred their eggs over easy. "Good morning, Mrs. Chen," said Dr. Peterson, a kind pediatrician who always remembered to ask about Lily. "How's your daughter's science project coming along?" "She won 2nd place at the district fair," Rosa beamed. "I'm so proud of her." "What?" She didn't say was that she'd missed the science fair because she'd been working her evening shift at the grocery store. Lily had called her afterward, voice bubbling with excitement about her award. Rosa had cried in the break room, torn between pride and guilt. Around 9 a.m., the breakfast crowd thinned out. Rosa began cleaning the serving area and preparing for the lunch prep. This was her favorite time of day. Quiet moments when she could think about Lily's future and dream about better days ahead. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photo she kept as her wallpaper. Lily in her cap and gown from 8th grade graduation, smiling so wide her whole face seemed to glow. That day, Lily had hugged her tight and whispered, "Thank you for working so hard for me, Mom. I'm gonna make you proud." "You already do, sweetheart," Rosa had whispered back. "Every single day." Rosa slipped the phone back into her pocket and continued wiping down counters. In her locker, she kept a small notebook where she tracked every dollar she saved for Lily's college fund. $847. It wasn't much, but it was progress. Every penny counted. The morning stretched ahead like countless others before it. Rosa would serve food, clean tables, and smile at customers who rarely looked her in the eye. She would go home for a few hours, help Lily with homework, then head to her second job at the grocery store. Tomorrow, she would do it all again, but Rosa didn't mind the hard work. Every dish she served, every floor she mopped, every grocery bag she packed was another step toward Lily's dreams. Her daughter would have the chances Rosa never had. That made every tired morning and aching foot worth it. As she arranged fresh fruit in the display case, Rosa had no idea that this ordinary Tuesday would be anything but ordinary. She didn't know that in just a few hours, her simple life would change forever. All she knew was that she had work to do and a daughter to provide for. The morning rush was about to begin again. and Rosa Chen was ready to serve whoever walked through those cafeteria doors. The second breakfast rush came and went like a gentle wave. By 10 a.m., the cafeteria had settled into its quiet rhythm. Most of the doctors were making rounds, the nurses were busy with patients, and the few remaining visitors sat scattered at tables, talking in hushed voices over cooling coffee. Rosa was wiping down the counter when she noticed him. The man stood just inside the cafeteria entrance, looking lost and confused. His clothes were expensive, she could tell that much, but they looked like he'd slept in them. His dark hair was messy, and his shoulders sagged with exhaustion. He seemed to be studying the menu board, but his eyes had a distant look, like his mind was somewhere else entirely. Other cafeteria workers had noticed him too. Sandy from the register whispered something to Maria from the grill, and they both glanced in his direction. A few customers turned to stare. The man clearly didn't belong here, not because he wasn't welcome, but because he looked like someone who usually ate in much fancier places. Rosa watched him stand there for several minutes, just staring at the menu without moving. Something about his posture reminded her of Lily during her first week of high school, uncertain and trying to figure out where she fit in. "Can I help you?" Rosa called out gently. The man looked up, startled. His eyes were kind but tired, with dark circles that spoke of many sleepless nights. When he walked toward her counter, she noticed he moved slowly, like every step took effort. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice quiet and hoarse. "I'm not really sure what I want. Everything looks nice." Up close, Rosa could see the worry lines around his eyes and the way his hands shook slightly. This was a man carrying heavy burdens. "Are you okay, honey?" Rosa asked, the same way she would speak to Lily when her daughter came home upset about something at school. The question seemed to surprise him. His eyes widened slightly, and for a moment he looked like he might cry. "I've been here all night," he admitted. "At the hospital, I mean. My friend, she's very sick. I haven't eaten since yesterday, but I'm not really hungry." Rosa's heart immediately went out to him. She'd seen this look on countless faces over the years, family members and friends keeping vigil, too worried to take care of themselves. "What's your name, honey?" she asked softly. "Eddie," he said after a brief pause. "Just Eddie." "Well, Eddie, my name is Rosa, and you need to eat something, even if you don't feel like it. Your friend needs you to stay strong." Eddie nodded slowly, like he was trying to remember how to take care of himself. "How about I make you a nice sandwich and get you some coffee?" Rosa suggested. "Turkey and cheese? Something gentle on your stomach?" "That sounds perfect," Eddie said. "Thank you." As Rosa prepared his sandwich, she kept glancing at him. He sat at a small table near her counter, staring at his hands. She'd worked in the hospital long enough to recognize grief and worry. This man was carrying more weight than anyone should have to bear alone. She brought him the sandwich and coffee, plus a small bowl of fruit she added without being asked. "How much do I owe you?" Eddie asked, reaching for his wallet. "Don't worry about it right now," Rosa said, sitting down across from him. Her break wasn't for another hour, but the cafeteria was nearly empty, and this man needed kindness more than she needed to follow schedules. "I can't let you pay for my food," Eddie protested. "You're not letting me do anything," Rosa smiled. "I'm choosing to. There's a difference." Eddie took a small bite of the sandwich, then another. Rosa was relieved to see him eat. "Tell me about your friend," she said gently. Eddie's face softened with sadness and love. "Her name is Sarah. She worked for me for years, but she became like family. Like a sister, really. She's been fighting cancer for months. And last night," his voice broke slightly. "Last night was really bad." Rosa reached across the table and patted his hand. I'm so sorry, Eddie. That must be terrifying. The doctors say she might not make it through the week, Eddie continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I keep thinking about all the times. I was too busy to really talk to her. All the times I took her kindness for granted. Rosa understood that kind of regret. She thought about all the school events she'd missed because she was working, all the bedtime stories she'd been too tired to read. Love isn't just about the big moments, Rosa said quietly. It's about showing up when it matters. And you're here now, when she needs you most. That counts for everything. Eddie looked up at her with surprise, like he hadn't expected such wisdom from a cafeteria worker. You remind me of her, he said. Sarah always saw the best in people. Always had time to listen even when everyone else was too busy. She sounds like a wonderful person, Rosa said. She is, Eddie agreed. She used to tell me that the most important thing in life wasn't what you accomplished, but how you treated people along the way. I forgot that for a while. They sat in comfortable silence while Eddie finished his sandwich. Rosa poured him more coffee without being asked. What about you? Eddie asked. Do you have family? Rosa's face lit up the way it always did when someone asked about Lily. I have a daughter. She's 16 and absolutely brilliant. She wants to study environmental science in college. That's wonderful, Eddie said, and Rosa could tell he genuinely meant it. She must get her intelligence from you. Rosa laughed, softly. Oh no, Lily is much smarter than I ever was. She gets straight A's and wins science fairs. I just work hard and try to give her opportunities I never had. That's the most important kind of intelligence there is, Eddie said seriously. The wisdom to sacrifice for someone you love. Something in his voice made Rosa look at him more carefully. There was depth in his tired eyes, like he understood sacrifice in ways most people didn't. Can I ask you something, Rosa? Eddie said. Of course. Do you ever wonder if the choices you make, the small, everyday choices, really matter? Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to do important work, but then I see how cruel people can be to each other. And I wonder if any of it makes a difference. Rosa thought about this question seriously. She thought about every meal she'd served, every kind word she'd offered, every dollar she'd saved for Lily's future. I think everything matters, she said finally. Every small kindness, every moment we choose to help instead of hurt. Maybe we don't see the big picture, but that doesn't mean our pieces aren't important. Eddie stared at her for a long moment. You really believe that? I have to, Rosa said simply. Otherwise, what's the point of getting up every morning? They talked for another 20 minutes. Eddie asked about Lily's dreams, and Rosa found herself sharing stories she rarely told anyone. How proud she felt when Lily won her first science fair, how scared she was about affording college, how sometimes she felt like she was failing as a mother because she worked so much. You're not failing, Eddie said firmly. Your daughter is lucky to have someone who loves her so much. When Eddie finally stood to leave, Rosa felt sad to see him go. It had been nice to talk to someone who really listened. Thank you, Eddie said, his voice thick with emotion. Not just for the food, but for this, for reminding me that there are still good people in the world. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. It was simple white cardstock with just a phone number printed on it. If you ever need anything, he said, pressing the card into Rosa's hand. I mean that. Anything at all. Rosa looked at the card, then back at Eddie's sincere face. You don't have to, please, Eddie interrupted gently. Let me give you something back, even if it's just the possibility of helping you someday. Rosa tucked the card into her apron pocket. You take care of yourself, Eddie, and give Sarah my love. Tell her Rosa from the cafeteria is thinking about her." Eddie's eyes filled with tears. "I will. Thank you, Rosa, for everything." As he walked away, Rosa felt a warm glow in her chest. She'd done what felt right, nothing more, just treated another human being with kindness when they needed it most. She had no idea that Mr. Garrett had been watching from his office window the entire time. Rosa returned to her work, humming softly as she cleaned tables and prepared for the lunch rush. She thought about Eddie and hoped his friend Sarah would be okay. She thought about Lily and the college applications spread across their kitchen table. The morning sun streamed through the cafeteria windows, casting everything in golden light. Rosa Chen went about her simple work, unaware that her simple act of kindness had just set extraordinary events in motion. In just a few hours, she would learn that sometimes the most ordinary moments create the most extraordinary changes. The lunch rush came and went in its usual blur of hungry hospital staff and worried families. Rosa served meatloaf and mashed potatoes, turkey sandwiches and soup, her hands moving with the rhythm of 8 years' practice. She smiled at familiar faces and offered gentle words to the tired visitors who looked like they needed encouragement. Dr. Williams ordered his usual chef salad. "You seem extra cheerful today, Rosa," he observed. "Just had a nice conversation with someone who needed a friend," Rosa replied, thinking of Eddie. She hoped he was doing better and that his friend Sarah was comfortable. The afternoon passed peacefully. Rosa cleaned the serving area, restocked supplies, and helped prepare. For the evening shift, her replacement, Mrs. Foster, would arrive at 3 p.m., and then Rosa could go home for a few precious hours with Lily before heading to her second job at Murphy's grocery store. At 2:45 p.m., Rosa was wiping down the last of the tables when she heard her name called over the intercom. "Rosa Chen to the supervisor's office." Rosa Chen to the supervisor's office immediately. A chill ran down Rosa's spine. In 8 years of working at the hospital, she had never been called to Mr. Garrett's office, ever. She tried to think of what she might have done wrong, but came up empty. Her work was always on time, her station always clean, her attitude always professional. Sandy looked up from the cash register with worried eyes. "What do you think he wants?" "I have no idea," Rosa said, untying her apron with trembling fingers. But deep down, she had a terrible feeling she knew exactly what this was about. Mr. Garrett's office was on the second floor, up a narrow staircase that Rosa rarely used. The climb felt endless, each step heavier than the last. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. The office door was already open when she arrived. Mr. Garrett sat behind his metal desk, his thin face wearing an expression of cold satisfaction that made Rosa's stomach turn. "Sit down, Chen," he said, without looking up from a folder in front of him. Rosa sat in the hard plastic chair across from his desk. The office smelled like stale coffee and disappointment. Behind Mr. Garrett, a window looked down into the cafeteria where Rosa had spent so many years serving others. "Do you know why you're here?" Mr. Garrett asked, finally looking at her with his pale, mean eyes. "No, sir," Rosa said quietly, though her voice shook slightly. Mr. Garrett opened the folder and pulled out several printed papers. Rosa could see they were screenshots from security cameras showing her sitting at the table with Eddie. "At approximately 10:15 this morning, you gave away free food to an unauthorized person," Mr. Garrett said, his voice dripping with accusation. "You then spent 23 minutes of company time sitting and chatting instead of working." Rosa's T-by-U-C mouth went dry. "Mr. Garrett, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain." He cut her off sharply. The evidence is right here in black and white. You violated multiple company policies. He was a visitor with a sick friend, Rosa said desperately. He hadn't eaten in over a day. I was just being kind. Kind? Mr. Garrett's voice rose. You were stealing company property and wasting company time. That sandwich cost the hospital $3.47. The coffee was another $1.50. Add your wages for 23 minutes of unauthorized break time, and you cost this hospital over $15. Rosa felt like she was falling down a deep hole. I'll pay it back. I'll pay for the food myself. Please, Mr. Garrett. I've worked here for 8 years without any problems. That's exactly the issue, Mr. Garrett said, leaning back in his chair with cruel satisfaction. You think, because you've been here so long, you can break the rules whenever you feel like it. You think you're special. I don't think I'm special, Rosa said, tears starting to blur her vision. I just thought he needed help. What he needed was to buy his own food like everyone else, Mr. Garrett snapped. This isn't a charity, Chen. This is a business, and employees who can't understand that don't belong here. Rosa's heart stopped. What are you saying? Mr. Garrett pulled out another paper from the folder. Rosa could see official letterhead and her name typed at the top. I'm saying you're fired, he said, sliding the termination notice across the desk. Effective immediately. For theft of company property, violation of customer service protocols, and unauthorized use of company time. The words hit Rosa like a physical blow. She stared at the paper, but the letters seemed to swim and dance before her eyes. Please, she whispered. Please don't do this. I need this job. My daughter, she's applying to colleges. I can't lose this job. You should have thought about that before you decided to play social worker on company time, Mr. Garrett said coldly. Pack up your locker. Security will escort you out. Rosa's hands shook as she picked up the termination letter. 8 years of loyalty, 8 years of showing up early and staying late, 8 years of serving others with a smile, all gone because she showed kindness to someone who needed it. This isn't fair, she said, her voice breaking. I was helping someone. I was being human. Fair? Mr. Garrett laughed, but there was no humor in it. Life isn't fair, Chen. If it was, I wouldn't have to make budget cuts by eliminating employees who can't follow simple rules. The truth hit Rosa like a slap. You were looking for a reason to fire me. I was looking for employees who understand their priorities, Mr. Garrett said. You clearly don't. Now clean out your locker and get out. If you're not gone in 15 minutes, I'll call the police. Rosa stood on unsteady legs. The room felt like it was spinning around her. Everything she had worked for, everything Lily needed, it was all crashing down because she gave a sandwich to a grieving man. My replacement, Rosa started. Will be here at 3 p.m. as scheduled, Mr. Garrett finished. Don't worry about training her. Anyone can serve food and wipe tables. You're not as irreplaceable as you think. Rosa walked toward the door on legs that felt like rubber. At the threshold, she turned back one last time. What kind of person are you? She asked quietly. What kind of person punishes someone for showing kindness? Mr. Garrett's face remained stone cold. The kind who keeps his job by following rules instead of bleeding heart emotions, something you never learned. Rosa left the office and walked down the stairs in a daze. In the cafeteria, her co-workers looked up with worried faces. Sandy started to ask what happened, but Rosa's expression told her everything she needed to know. The walk to her locker felt like a funeral march. Rosa opened the metal door and stared at 8 years of her life. A spare apron, comfortable shoes for long days, photos of Lily, and the small notebook where she tracked college savings. $847. Not nearly enough for even one semester. She packed everything into a small cardboard box, her hands moving automatically while her mind struggled to process what had just happened. Other employees whispered among themselves, shooting her sympathetic glances. Rosa? Mrs. Foster had arrived early for her shift. What's going on? I've been fired, Rosa said simply. The words felt unreal coming out of her mouth. Fired? For what? For being kind to someone who needed it. Mrs. Foster's face filled with outrage. That's ridiculous. You're the best worker we have. Not anymore, Rosa said, closing her locker for the last time. The security guard who escorted her out was Officer Martinez, someone she'd served coffee to hundreds of times. His face was filled with embarrassment and sympathy. I'm sorry, Rosa, he said quietly as they walked through the lobby. This is wrong. It's not your fault, Rosa replied, though each step felt like walking through quicksand. Outside in the parking lot, Rosa stood next to her old car and looked back at the hospital where she'd spent so much of her life. Through the cafeteria, windows! She could see the table where she'd sat with Eddie just hours ago, the place where her life had changed forever. She sat in her car for several minutes, staring at the termination letter. The words blurred as tears finally came. 8 years of dedication, destroyed in 15 minutes. Lily's college dreams, shattered. Because Rosa had chosen compassion over company policy. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Can't wait to hear about your day, Mom. Love you. Rosa broke down completely then, sobbing in the hospital parking lot as the reality of what she had to tell her daughter crashed over her like a wave. How do you explain to a brilliant 16-year-old that her future just got stolen because her mother gave a sandwich to a stranger? Through her tears, Rosa remembered Eddie's business card in her apron pocket. For just a moment, she considered calling the number, but pride stopped her. She couldn't ask a grieving stranger for help, especially not someone who was dealing with his own pain. Rosa started her car and drove home, knowing that she was about to deliver the worst news of her daughter's young life. The afternoon sun felt too bright, the world too normal, for everything to have changed so completely. As she pulled into her apartment complex, Rosa realized that in trying to help Eddie remember that good people still existed, she had forgotten that cruel people existed too, and sometimes the cruel ones held all the power. Rosa sat in her car outside the apartment building for 10 more minutes, trying to figure out how to tell Lily. How do you explain to your child that their entire future just got stolen? How do you say that all those late nights studying, all those scholarship applications, all those dreams might be for nothing? She practiced the words in her head. Honey, I lost my job today. Lily, we need to talk about college. Sweetheart, something terrible happened. None of them sounded right. All of them sounded like the end of the world. Finally, Rosa forced herself to get out of the car. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs to their apartment, each step feeling heavier than the last. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. Mom, you're home early, Lily's voice called from the kitchen, bright and happy. Rosa stepped inside and saw her daughter exactly where she'd pictured her, sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by college brochures, scholarship applications, and textbooks. Lily's laptop was open to the MIT website, and she had a notebook filled with neat handwriting beside her. I was just working on my essay for the environmental science scholarship. Lily said without looking up. Want to hear what I wrote so far? Rosa's heart shattered. Her beautiful, brilliant daughter sat there, planning a future that Rosa could no longer provide. Lily had no idea that everything had just changed. "Lily," Rosa said, her voice coming out as barely a whisper. Something in her tone made Lily look up. Her daughter's smile faded immediately when she saw Rosa's face. "Mom, what's wrong? You look like you've been crying." Rosa set down her purse and the box of belongings from her locker. Lily's eyes fixed on the cardboard box with growing alarm. "Sit down, sweetheart," Rosa said gently. "We need to talk." "What happened?" Lily asked, fear creeping into her voice. "Is someone hurt? Is it Aunt Marie? Are you sick?" "No one's hurt," Rosa said quickly, sitting across from her daughter at the table covered with college dreams. "But something did happen at work today." Lily waited, her dark eyes, so much like her father's, watching Rosa with growing worry. "I lost my job," Rosa said simply. There was no gentle way to say it. "What do you mean, lost your job?" Lily asked. "Like, you got laid off?" "I got fired," Rosa admitted, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. Lily's face went through several emotions at once: shock, confusion, and then anger. "Fired? For what? You're the best worker they have. You never miss days. You work overtime. You care about everyone." "I helped someone who needed it," Rosa interrupted quietly. "A man whose friend was dying. I gave him food and sat with him during my break. Mr. Garrett said I violated company policies." "That's ridiculous." Lily's voice rose with outrage. "You got fired for being kind? That can't be legal." Rosa reached across the table and took her daughter's hands. "It doesn't matter if it's legal or fair, honey. It happened. And now we have to figure out what to do next." The reality began to sink in for Lily. Rosa watched her daughter's face as understanding dawned. The college applications, the scholarship deadlines, the dreams they'd worked toward for years. "The college fund," Lily said quietly. $847, Rosa confirmed. "It's not enough for even one semester anywhere." Lily stared at the MIT brochure in front of her. Her hands trembled as she closed the laptop screen. "It's okay," Lily said, but her voice cracked. "I don't need to go to college right away. I can get a job. I can help pay rent and bills. Maybe I can go to community college part-time." "No," Rosa said firmly. "Absolutely not. You are not giving up your dreams because of this." "Mom, be realistic," Lily said, tears starting to fill her eyes. "MIT costs $60,000 a year. Even state schools cost $20,000. Where are we going to get that kind of money?" Rosa felt panic rising in her chest. Lily was right, and they both knew it. Without Rosa's hospital job, they barely had enough money for rent and groceries. College suddenly seemed as impossible as flying to the moon. "I'll find another job," Rosa said desperately. "Maybe 2 jobs. I'll work around the clock if I have 2. We'll figure this out." "Mom," Lily said gently, "even if you got hired somewhere tomorrow, it would take years to save enough money, and most places don't pay as much as the hospital did." The truth of it hit Rosa like a punch to the stomach. The hospital job had taken her 8 years to work up to a decent wage. Starting over somewhere else meant starting at the bottom again. Minimum wage jobs wouldn't even cover their basic expenses, much less college tuition. "I should have kept my mouth shut," Rosa said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I should have followed the rules and minded my own business. I ruined everything because I couldn't just do my job." "Don't say that," Lily said fiercely, moving her chair closer to her mother. "Don't ever say that. You did the right thing. You helped someone who needed help. That's who you are, Mom. That's who you raised me to be. But look what it cost us. Rosa sobbed. Look what I took away from you. Lily wrapped her arms around her mother, and Rosa could feel her daughter's tears falling too. You didn't take anything away from me, Lily whispered. You gave me everything that matters. You taught me to work hard, to be kind, to stand up for what's right. Those things are worth more than any college degree. They held each other and cried together, for lost dreams, for unfair choices, for a future that suddenly seemed so uncertain. What are we going to do? Rosa asked. We'll figure it out, Lily said, echoing her mother's words. Maybe I can defer college for a year. Maybe there are scholarships we haven't found yet. Maybe something will work out. But even as she said it, both of them knew how impossible it all seemed. Rosa's grocery store job paid barely above minimum wage. Even working full-time there, she couldn't cover their basic living expenses, much less save for college. Later that evening, after a dinner of leftover soup that neither of them really ate, Rosa sat on her bed, staring at Eddie's business card. She had taped it back together after tearing it in half, and now the crease ran right through the phone number. Part of her wanted to call. Eddie had seemed genuinely grateful for her help. Maybe he could offer her a job reference, or knew someone who was hiring. But the larger part of her felt too ashamed and proud to ask a stranger for help, especially someone who was dealing with his own grief. Rosa put the card in her jewelry box next to her wedding ring and tried to think of other options. She could call her sister in California, but Marie was struggling with her own family's expenses. She could apply for loans, but banks wanted collateral she didn't have. Every option seemed like a dead end. Through the thin bedroom wall, Rosa could hear Lily on the phone with her best friend, trying to explain what had happened. Her daughter's voice was steady and mature, but Rosa could hear the sadness underneath. I don't know yet, Lily was saying. Maybe community college first, then transfer. Yeah, it's scary, but we'll figure something out. Rosa closed her eyes and felt the weight of failure pressing down on her chest. She had worked so hard for so many years, and in one afternoon, it had all crumbled. Lily was being brave and supportive, but Rosa knew her daughter was grieving the loss of dreams they'd shared for years. As she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, Rosa made herself a promise. Somehow, some way, she would find a path forward. She would not let one cruel man's decision destroy her daughter's future. She just had no idea how she was going to keep that promise. The night stretched ahead of them both, filled with worry and uncertainty. Neither Rosa nor Lily slept well, each lost in their own thoughts about what tomorrow might bring. Rosa woke up at 4:30 a.m. out of habit, her internal clock still set to her old work schedule. For just a moment, in the space between sleep and waking, she forgot what had happened. Her mind started planning the morning routine, coffee prep, breakfast service, greeting the early doctors. Then reality crashed back over her like a cold wave. No job, no income, no future for Lily's college dreams. She lay in bed listening to the silence of the apartment. Usually, she would be getting dressed for work right now. Instead, she stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out what came next. By 6 a.m., Rosa gave up on sleep and made coffee in the quiet kitchen. She sat at the table where Lily's college materials still lay scattered, a painful reminder of everything that had changed. The MIT brochure seemed to mock her with its bright colors and promises of opportunity. Rosa picked up the newspaper and turned to the classified ads. The job listings looked grim. Most required experience she didn't have, or paid wages that wouldn't cover their basic expenses. A few restaurants were hiring, but she knew from experience that food service jobs rarely offered the hours or benefits she needed. She circled 3 possibilities with a red pen: a cleaning company that hired part-time workers, a department store looking for cashiers, and a small diner that needed a morning waitress. None of them would pay what the hospital had, but they were starting points. At 7:30 a.m., Lily emerged from her bedroom, already dressed for school. Her eyes were puffy from crying, but she managed a small smile for her mother. "Any good job leads?" Lily asked, sitting down with a piece of toast. "A few possibilities," Rosa said, trying to sound more hopeful than she felt. "I'll start making calls after you leave for school." Lily nodded and ate her breakfast quietly. Rosa could see her daughter's mind working, probably trying to figure out their finances just like she was. "Mom," Lily said carefully, "I've been thinking, maybe I should get a part-time job too. Just something after school and weekends. Every little bit would help." "Absolutely not," Rosa said firmly. "Your job is school. Your grades are perfect, and you need to keep them that way for scholarships. That's our best hope right now." "But, Mom—" "No buts," Rosa interrupted gently. "Let me worry about money. You focus on your studies. Promise me." Lily sighed but nodded. "I promise. But if things get really bad—" "They won't," Rosa said with more confidence than she felt. "I'll find something. We'll be okay." After Lily left for school, Rosa began her job search in earnest. The cleaning company said they would call her back in a week. The department store had just filled their position that morning. The diner wanted her to come in for an interview, but could only offer 20 hours a week at minimum wage. Rosa did the math in her head. 20 hours at minimum wage wouldn't even cover their rent, much less food, utilities, and everything else they needed. She would need at least 2 part-time jobs, maybe 3, to make ends meet. By 10 a.m., Rosa had made 12 phone calls and gotten 3 rejections, 5 "we'll call you backs," and 4 numbers that went straight to voicemail. The stress was making her head pound. She was dialing the 13th number when her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but something about it seemed familiar. Rosa hesitated. Unknown numbers usually meant bill collectors or telemarketers, but something made her answer. "Hello? Ms. Chen?" The voice was gentle and familiar. "This is Eddie. We met yesterday at the hospital." Rosa's heart stopped. She gripped the phone tighter, her mind racing. How had he gotten her number? She must have written it down on a napkin during their conversation without remembering. "Eddie," she said softly, How did you get my number?" "You wrote it down yesterday when I asked about reaching you if I needed to thank you properly," Eddie said. "I hope you don't mind me calling." Rosa didn't remember writing down her number, but yesterday felt like a blur of kindness and conversation. "No, it's fine. How is your friend? How is Sarah?" There was a pause. "She's stable," Eddie said quietly. "Thank you for asking. The doctors think she might pull through. But I'm not calling about Sarah." Rosa felt a chill of worry. "What do you mean?" "I heard about what happened to you," Eddie said, his voice filled with genuine concern. "About your job." Rosa's stomach dropped. "How did you hear about that?" "I have connections at the hospital," Eddie said carefully. "When I learned that you were fired for helping me, I felt terrible. This is all my fault." "It's not your fault," Rosa said quickly, though tears started forming in her eyes. "I made the choice to help you. I knew the rules, but you shouldn't have been punished for showing kindness," Eddie said firmly. "What that man did to you was wrong. Completely wrong." Rosa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. It doesn't matter now. What's done is done. I just have to figure out what comes next. That's why I'm calling, Eddie said. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, about your daughter and her dreams, about how hard you work to give her opportunities. Rosa's heart started beating faster. Eddie, I appreciate you caring, but please, Eddie interrupted gently. Let me help. Meet me for coffee. There's something important I need to discuss with you. I can't ask you for help, Rosa said, pride rising in her voice. You have your own problems to deal with. Your friend is sick, and you're going through your own difficult time. You're not asking, Eddie said. I'm offering. And Rosa, yesterday you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. You showed me that there are still good people in this world. People who care about others more than themselves. That means everything to me right now. Rosa felt torn between hope and caution. Part of her desperately wanted to say yes, but accepting help from a stranger seemed wrong, especially when that stranger was dealing with his own grief. I don't know, Rosa said hesitantly. 1 cup of coffee, Eddie said. That's all I'm asking. Hear me out, and if you're not interested in what I have to say, I'll respect that and never bother you again. Rosa thought about the job applications spread across her kitchen table. She thought about Lily's college dreams and their empty bank account. She thought about the promise she'd made to herself last night to find a way forward. Where? She asked, quietly. Do you know Grounded Coffee on Main Street? Yes. Can you meet me there at 2 p.m.? Rosa looked at the clock. That would give her time to make a few more job calls and change into something nicer than her pajamas. Okay, she said, before she could change her mind. I'll be there. Thank you, Rosa, Eddie said, and she could hear the relief in his voice. I promise, this will be worth your time. After hanging up, Rosa sat staring at her phone. Part of her wondered if she was making a mistake. What could Eddie possibly offer her? A job reference? A small loan? Whatever it was, she couldn't expect much from someone she'd only met once. But the desperate part of her, the part that had been awake all night worrying about rent and groceries and Lily's future, whispered that maybe this phone call was the answer to prayers she hadn't even known she was praying. Rosa showered and put on her best blouse and slacks. She practiced what she would say, how she would politely decline if Eddie offered money, how she would gracefully accept if he offered help finding a job. At 1:30 p.m., she drove to Grounded Coffee, her hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. She had no idea that this meeting would change her life in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. As she pulled into the coffee shop parking lot, Rosa took a deep breath and tried to prepare herself for whatever Eddie wanted to discuss. She had learned yesterday that kindness could have unexpected consequences. Today, she was about to discover just how unexpected those consequences could be. The coffee shop looked busy through the windows. Rosa checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, said a small prayer for strength and wisdom, and walked toward what she hoped might be the beginning of a solution to her problems. Grounded Coffee was exactly the kind of place Rosa rarely visited. Full of young professionals with laptops and expensive coffee drinks that cost more than she usually spent on groceries for a day. She felt out of place in her simple blouse and slacks, surrounded by people in business suits discussing deals and projects. Rosa scanned the busy cafe and spotted Eddie sitting in a corner booth, looking completely different from the disheveled man she'd met yesterday. His hair was neat, his clothes were crisp and clean, but his eyes still held that same gentle kindness that had drawn her to help him. He stood when he saw her approaching, extending his hand with a warm smile. "Rosa, thank you so much for coming," he said, gesturing for her to sit across from him. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Tea? Just coffee is fine, Rosa said, settling into the booth. Black coffee. Eddie signaled the waitress and ordered Rosa's coffee along with a refill for his own cup. When they were alone again, an awkward silence fell between them. How are you holding up? Eddie asked gently. Yesterday was a difficult day for you? I'm managing, Rosa said, though her voice betrayed her worry. Still trying to figure out what comes next. Eddie nodded thoughtfully. Rosa, before we talk about anything else, I need to be completely honest with you about something. Rosa felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. Honest about what? Eddie took a deep breath, as if he was preparing to jump off a cliff. My name isn't Eddie? Rosa stared at him confused. What do you mean? I mean that yesterday, when I introduced myself as Eddie, I wasn't telling you the whole truth. He paused, looking directly into her eyes. My real name is Elon Musk. Rosa blinked several times, certain she had misheard. I'm sorry. What did you say? Elon Musk, he repeated quietly. The man you shared coffee with yesterday, the man you showed kindness to when he was at his lowest point, is Elon Musk. Rosa's mind went completely blank. She stared at Eddie. Elon, trying to process what he just said. Elon Musk, the billionaire, the man who built electric cars and rockets, the person she'd seen on TV and read about in magazines. That's impossible, she said finally. You're joking. I'm not joking, Elon said softly. I know it's hard to believe. Yesterday I was exhausted and emotional and probably didn't look like someone you'd recognize from news photos. Rosa's coffee arrived, but she didn't touch it. Her hands were shaking too much to lift the cup. But why? She started, then stopped. Why were you at the hospital? Why didn't you tell me who you were? Elon's face grew sad. Sarah, the friend I told you about, she's not just any employee. She was my personal assistant for 7 years, but she became like family to me, like the sister I never had. When she got sick, I wanted to be there for her, the way she'd always been there for me. But you could have gone to any hospital. Had the best doctors. She chose to stay at Medicor because that's where her own doctor practices, Elon explained. And I respected her choice. I've been spending nights there for weeks, just sitting with her, talking to her when she's awake. Rosa tried to wrap her mind around this information. And yesterday? Yesterday was the worst night yet, Elon said, his voice thick with emotion. The doctors weren't sure she'd make it through the morning. I'd been awake for 3 days straight. I was questioning everything. My work, my purpose, whether any of it mattered. So you came to the cafeteria, Rosa said slowly. I wandered down there because I couldn't sit in that room anymore, Elon continued. I was lost and exhausted and honestly thinking about giving up on everything I'd built. The criticism, the pressure, the constant attacks in the media. It had all gotten to me. Rosa remembered how broken he had looked, how much pain was in his eyes. And then you appeared, Elon said, his voice becoming stronger. This woman, who didn't know me from anyone else, who saw a stranger in pain and decided to help. You reminded me why I started my companies in the first place, to help humanity, to make the world better. I just gave you a sandwich, Rosa said weakly. You gave me much more than that, Elon said firmly. You gave me hope when I needed it most. You showed me that there are still good people in this world, people worth fighting for. Rosa felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. I still don't understand why you didn't tell me, she said. Because I wanted one genuine human interaction, Elon explained. Do you know how rare it is for someone to treat me like a regular person? Usually, when people find out who I am, everything changes. They want something from me, or they act differently, or they can't see past the money and fame. But with you, I got to just be Eddie, a worried man whose friend was dying. You treated me with kindness, not because of what I could do for you, but because that's who you are. That's incredibly precious. Rosa picked up her coffee cup with trembling hands and took a small sip. This is insane, she whispered. I know it's a lot to process, Elon said gently, but there's more I need to tell you. Rosa wasn't sure she could handle any more surprises. More? When I learned that you'd been fired for helping me, I was furious, Elon said, his voice hardening. I made some phone calls, did some research into your supervisor and the hospital's employment practices. What kind of research? The kind that revealed Mr. Garrett has a pattern of treating employees poorly, Elon said. Multiple complaints, several wrongful termination cases that were quietly settled. Your firing wasn't just cruel, it was part of a bigger problem. Rosa felt a mix of vindication and worry. What does that mean? It means that what happened to you was wrong, and I want to make it right, Elon said. But first, I want to hear about Lily. Tell me about your daughter's dreams. For the next 20 minutes, Rosa found herself opening up to this man who was somehow both the stranger she'd helped and one of the most famous people in the world. She told him about Lily's passion for environmental science, her brilliant mind, her acceptance letters that they couldn't afford to act on. She wants to study sustainable technology, Rosa said, pulling out her phone to show him pictures of Lily's science fair projects. She believes she can help solve climate change. She's so smart, so dedicated. But now you're worried you can't give her that chance, Elon finished. MIT costs $60,000 a year, Rosa said, her voice breaking. Even with my hospital job, we could never afford that. And now, without any job at all. Elon studied the photos of Lily's projects on Rosa's phone. These are impressive, he said seriously. Really impressive. This kind of innovative thinking is exactly what the world needs. She's amazing, Rosa said with fierce pride. She deserves every opportunity. Yes, she does, Elon agreed. And Rosa, I didn't ask you here just to reveal my identity or to apologize for what happened to you. Rosa looked at him with growing confusion and hope. Then why? Elon leaned forward, his eyes intense and sincere. I asked you here because I want to offer you something. Several things, actually. What kind of things? First, Elon said, Lily has a full scholarship to MIT. I spoke with the admissions office this morning. Full tuition, room and board, everything. Rosa's coffee cup slipped from her hands and clattered onto the table, spilling coffee everywhere. She stared at Elon in complete shock. That's impossible, she whispered. It's done, Elon said calmly, pulling napkins from the dispenser to clean up the spilled coffee. The paperwork is being processed as we speak. But why? How? Because brilliant young people like Lily are the future, Elon said. Because her ideas about sustainable technology could change the world. Because her mother showed me kindness when I needed it most. Rosa felt like she was dreaming. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to cafeteria workers from Detroit. There's more, Elon continued. I'm starting a new foundation, Rosa. It's focused on supporting families like yours, hardworking people who face unfair circumstances, who deserve better than they've been given. Rosa couldn't speak. She could barely breathe. I want you to run it, Elon said simply. I want you to be the director of this foundation. Me? Rosa's voice came out as a squeak. You, Elon confirmed. You understand what it means to struggle. You know how to recognize genuine need versus people who just want handouts. You have the heart and wisdom to help families who are facing the same challenges you've faced. Rosa's mind reeled. Yesterday, she was a cafeteria worker. Today, she was being offered the chance to run a foundation for one of the richest men in the world. I don't understand, she said weakly. I don't have any experience running anything. I've never even been to college myself. The most important. Qualifications can't be taught in school, Elon said. Compassion, wisdom, the ability to see people's true worth, those come from life experience. You have those qualities in abundance. Rosa put her head in her hands, overwhelmed by everything that was happening. I know it's a lot, Elon said gently. Take your time to process it. But Rosa, yesterday, you saved more than just my faith in humanity. You changed the entire direction of my life. Let me return the favor. Rosa sat in stunned silence for several minutes, staring at the coffee shop table while her mind tried to catch up with reality. Around them, other customers chatted about normal things, work deadlines, weekend plans, grocery lists. None of them knew that at this corner table a woman's entire world was being turned upside down. I need to understand something, Rosa said finally, looking up at Elon with confused eyes. Lily's scholarship to MIT. That's real? That's actually happening? Completely real, Elon confirmed, pulling out his phone. I can show you the email confirmation from the admissions office. They're sending the official paperwork to your address by tomorrow. Rosa watched as he scrolled through his emails and turned the screen toward her. There it was in black and white. Scholarship approval. Lily Chen. Environmental Science Program. Full financial aid package. $60,000 a year, Rosa whispered, reading the numbers. For 4 years. Plus a stipend for books and living expenses, Elon added. And access to special research programs that aren't usually available to undergraduates. Rosa's hands began to shake again. 2 days ago, she'd been lying awake, calculating how many years it would take to save enough for 1 semester. Now, her daughter had a full ride to one of the best schools in the world. But why Lily specifically? Rosa asked. You've never even met her. Because I looked at her science fair projects on your phone, Elon said seriously. Because I read about her ideas for sustainable technology. Because brilliant young minds like hers are exactly what my companies need to solve the world's biggest problems. You really think she's that talented? I think she could change the world, Elon said simply. And I think she learned her values from a mother who taught her that helping others matters more than personal gain. Rosa felt tears starting to form. I can't believe this is real. Believe it, Elon said. But Rosa, the scholarship is just the beginning. Let me tell you about the foundation. Rosa wiped her eyes and tried to focus as Elon began explaining his vision. I've been thinking about starting something like this for years, he said. A foundation that identifies and supports hardworking families who face unfair circumstances. People who play by the rules but get knocked down anyway. Like what happened to me, Rosa said quietly. Exactly like what happened to you, Elon agreed. But also single parents struggling to afford their children's medical care. Families who lose their homes due to hospital bills. Students who can't afford college, despite having perfect grades. Good people who deserve better than they've been given. Rosa found herself leaning forward, drawn in by his passion. How would it work? We'd have a team of people who investigate cases, verify genuine need, and provide targeted help, Elon explained. Sometimes that might be financial support, sometimes it's connecting people with job opportunities, sometimes it's paying for education or medical treatment. That sounds incredible, Rosa said, but I still don't understand why you'd want me to run it. Elon studied her face carefully before answering. Rosa, what do you think are the most important qualifications for someone who helps struggling families? Rosa thought about it. Understanding what they're going through, I guess. Being able to tell who really needs help versus who's trying to take advantage. Exactly, Elon said. You've lived it. You know what it feels like to work 2 jobs and still not have enough money. You know what it's like to sacrifice everything for your child's future. You understand the difference between laziness and bad luck. But running a foundation, Rosa started, requires compassion, wisdom, and the ability to make good decisions. About people, Elon finished, all things you already have. Rosa's mind was spinning. What would the job actually involve? You'd oversee a team of caseworkers, Elon explained, review applications for help, make final decisions about who receives support, and develop new programs based on what you see. You'd also represent the foundation at events and help tell its story. I've never done anything like that before, Rosa said nervously. I'll provide training and support, Elon assured her. You'll have advisors, mentors, and a full staff to help you learn. But Rosa, the heart of this work, understanding people and caring about their struggles, that can't be taught. You already have it. Rosa felt overwhelmed again. What kind of salary are we talking about? $120,000 a year to start, Elon said casually. Plus full benefits, retirement contributions, and professional development opportunities. Rosa's coffee cup clattered against the table again. She'd never even imagined making that much money. It was more than triple what she'd earned at the hospital. That's an impossible amount of money, she stammered. It's appropriate for the responsibility you'd be taking on, Elon said. Rosa, this foundation could help thousands of families. The director's salary should reflect the importance of that work. Rosa tried to do math in her head. With that salary, she could afford a nice apartment, reliable transportation, health insurance, and still have money left over for emergencies and savings. Lily's college would be covered by the scholarship, so Rosa could actually breathe financially for the first time in her adult life. When would this start? She asked. As soon as you're ready, Elon said. We'd need a few weeks to set up the office space and hire initial staff, but you could start learning about foundation management immediately. Rosa felt like she was in a dream. And you're sure about this? You're not going to change your mind tomorrow and decide I'm not qualified? I'm absolutely sure, Elon said firmly. Rosa, yesterday, you showed me kindness when I was at my lowest point. You didn't know who I was or what I could do for you. You helped me because it was the right thing to do. That's exactly the kind of person I want leading this foundation. But what if I mess it up? Rosa asked, her insecurities rising to the surface. What if I make bad decisions or don't know how to manage people? Then you'll learn from your mistakes and get better, Elon said simply. Everyone who's ever done anything important has had to figure it out as they went along. The difference is that you'll be making decisions based on compassion and wisdom, not just rules and profit margins. Rosa thought about Mr. Garrett and his cold calculations about company policy. She thought about all the families she could help if she had resources and authority. How many people would we be able to help? She asked. That depends on how well we run it, Elon said. but I'm planning to fund this with $50 million initially. If it works well, I'll contribute more." Rosa nearly choked on her coffee. $50 million? To start, Elon confirmed. "Rosa, I make more than that in a week from my various companies. What matters isn't the money. It's using it to help people who actually need it." "I don't know what to say," Rosa admitted. "Say you'll think about it," Elon suggested. "Go home, talk to Lily about the scholarship. Think about whether running this foundation feels right to you." Rosa nodded slowly. "I do need to tell Lily. She's not going to believe any of this." "Will you bring her to meet me?" Elon asked. "I'd love to talk to her about her environmental science interests. My companies are working on exactly the kind of projects she wants to study." "You'd want to meet Lily?" "Of course," Elon said. "She's going to be studying at MIT because of her own brilliance and hard work. I'd be honored to meet her." Rosa felt another wave of surreal emotion. "This morning I was calling restaurants looking for waitressing jobs. Now you're asking to meet my daughter and offering me a six-figure salary to run a foundation. Life can change very quickly when the right opportunities come along," Elon said. "The question is whether you're ready to embrace that change." Rosa looked around the coffee shop again, trying to ground herself in reality. "What happens next?" "You go home and process all of this," Elon said. "Tomorrow, the scholarship paperwork arrives for Lily. When you're ready, whether that's in a few days or a few weeks, you call me and we'll start setting up the foundation." "And if I decide I can't do it," Rosa asked, "then Lily still has her scholarship, and I'll find someone else to run the foundation," Elon said. "But Rosa, I hope you don't decide that. I think you're exactly the right person for this job." Sas sat quietly for another moment, trying to absorb everything that had happened in the last hour. "There's one more thing," Elon said gently. "Something I haven't told you yet." Rosa wasn't sure she could handle any more surprises. "What?" "Your former supervisor, Mr. Garrett," Elon said, his voice taking on a harder edge. "Let's just say that his employment situation has changed as well." Rosa looked at him with growing curiosity and a small spark of hope. "What do you mean?" Elon smiled, but there was steel behind it. "Sometimes justice takes a little while to catch up with people who abuse their power, but it does catch up eventually." Rosa leaned forward in her seat, her heart racing. "What exactly happened to Mr. Garrett?" Elon's expression grew serious. "After you were fired yesterday, I started making some phone calls. I have friends who sit on hospital boards across the country, including Medicorp's board of directors." "You called the hospital board?" Rosa asked, her eyes widening. "I did more than call them," Elon said. "I requested an emergency meeting. When billionaires ask for emergency meetings, boards tend to listen." Rosa felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. "What did you tell them?" "The truth," Elon said simply. "I explained that I had been a visitor at their hospital, that one of their employees had shown me extraordinary kindness during a difficult time, and that she had been fired for it." "But you didn't tell them who you were yesterday," Rosa said, confused. "No, but I told them who I was this morning," Elon replied. "I explained that Eddie was actually Elon Musk, and that the employee who had been terminated was someone who had helped me during one of the darkest moments of my life." Rosa's mouth fell open. "What did they say?" "At first, they were apologetic, but said they couldn't interfere with personnel decisions," Elon continued. "So I offered to make a substantial donation to improve their cafeteria facilities and employee working conditions." "How substantial?" Rosa asked quietly. $5 million, Elon said casually. with one condition, that they investigate the management practices that led to your termination. Rosa felt dizzy again. $5 million. Because of her. The board was very interested in my donation, Elon continued. But they became even more interested when I shared some additional information my team had discovered about Mr. Garrett. What kind of information? Elon's face darkened. Over the past 3 years, your former supervisor has fired 17 employees. 17, Rosa, all for minor infractions or subjective reasons. Rosa's anger began to build. 17 people lost their jobs because of him? Including a single mother who was fired for leaving work early to pick up her sick child from school, Elon said. A man who was terminated for giving a patient's family directions to the nearest hotel. An elderly custodian who was let go for taking too long on his cleaning rounds. That's horrible, Rosa whispered. It gets worse, Elon continued. My team found records showing that while Mr. Garrett was cutting employee hours and firing good workers, he was receiving bonuses for reducing labor costs. Rosa felt sick to her stomach. He was getting paid extra money for ruining people's lives? Exactly, Elon said grimly. He was treating employees like numbers on a spreadsheet instead of human beings with families and responsibilities. What did the board do when they learned all this? They called an emergency meeting for this morning, Elon said. I was invited to present my findings. By 11 a.m., Mr. Garrett had been terminated for cause. Rosa stared at him in shock. He was fired? Fired, with no severance package, and his personnel file will reflect the investigation findings, Elon confirmed. He'll have a very difficult time finding another management position. Rosa felt a complicated mix of emotions. Part of her was relieved that justice had been served, but another part of her felt uncomfortable with someone losing their job, even someone as cruel as Mr. Garrett. I know you're thinking that you don't want anyone to lose their livelihood, Elon said, reading her expression. That's exactly why. You're the right person to run my foundation. You have compassion even for people who don't deserve it. I know what it feels like to be fired, Rosa said quietly. The difference is that you were fired for showing kindness, Elon pointed out. He was fired for systematic cruelty. There's a big difference between those two things. Rosa nodded slowly. What about the other employees? The ones who are still working there? That's the best part, Elon said, his mood brightening. The board has committed to reviewing all of Mr. Garrett's personnel decisions from the past 3 years. Several employees who were unfairly terminated will be offered their jobs back with back pay. Really? Rosa felt her first genuine smile of the day. Really? And they're implementing new policies to prevent this kind of abuse from happening again. Employee kindness and compassion will be encouraged, not punished. Rosa thought about Sandy and Miguel and all her other former co-workers. They'll be so relieved. Mr. Garrett made everyone miserable. The board also asked me to pass along a message to you, Elon said. What message? They want to offer you your job back, Elon said, with a promotion to cafeteria supervisor, a 20% pay increase, and a formal apology. Rosa's eyes widened. They want me to come back? They recognize that you were wrongfully terminated and that you're exactly the kind of employee they should be promoting, not firing, Elon explained. Rosa felt overwhelmed again. Yesterday, she'd been escorted out of the hospital in shame. Now they wanted her back as a supervisor. What did you tell them? She asked. I told them I'd pass along their offer, Elon said. But I also mentioned that you might have other opportunities to consider. Rosa laughed, a sound that was part joy and part disbelief. I went from unemployed to having 2 job offers in less than 24 hours. You went from being punished for kindness to being rewarded for it, Elon corrected. That's how the world should work. It's strange, Rosa said thoughtfully. I should feel happy about Mr. Garrett being fired. But mostly, I just feel sad that it took so long for someone to stop him. That's exactly why your foundation work will be so important, Elon said seriously. Most people who abuse their power don't have billionaires investigating them. They get away with it for years, hurting good people like you. But the foundation could help those people, Rosa said, understanding dawning in her voice. Exactly. We could be the voice for workers who get fired unfairly. We could investigate companies that mistreat employees. We could help level the playing field for people who don't have resources to fight back. Rosa felt a spark of excitement growing in her chest. We could really make a difference. We could change lives, Elon agreed. Just like we're changing yours. Rosa sat quietly for a moment, processing everything that had happened. Mr. Garrett probably has no idea why he was really fired, does he? Oh, he knows, Elon said with satisfaction. The board made it very clear that his termination was directly related to his treatment of you and other employees. They specifically mentioned that a valued hospital visitor had brought these issues to their attention. He'll figure out that you're that visitor? I hope he does, Elon said firmly. I hope he realizes that the man he forced you to help with kindness was someone who had the power to hold him accountable for his cruelty. Rosa thought about Mr. Garrett sitting in his office yesterday, so smug and satisfied as he destroyed her life. She imagined his shock when the board called him in this morning. Is it wrong that I feel a little bit glad? Rosa asked quietly. It's not wrong to feel glad when justice is served, Elon assured her. You're not celebrating his pain. You're celebrating the fact that he can't hurt anyone else the way he hurt you. And the other employees who were fired unfairly, they'll really get their jobs back? The board is reviewing every case personally, Elon confirmed. Anyone who was terminated without just cause will be offered reinstatement with full back pay. Rosa felt tears forming again, but this time they were tears of relief and justice. Those people have families, bills, responsibilities. Just like you do, Elon said gently. That's why stopping people like Mr. Garrett matters so much. As they prepared to leave the coffee shop, Rosa felt like she was living in a completely different world than the one she'd woken up in that morning. Yesterday, she'd been a victim of corporate cruelty. Today, she was being offered the chance to fight against that same cruelty on behalf of others. There's something poetic about all this, Rosa said as they stood to go. What do you mean? Mr. Garrett fired me for helping someone, Rosa explained. And helping that someone led to Mr. Garrett losing his job and me getting opportunities I never dreamed of, Elon smiled. Sometimes the universe has a sense of justice, even when it takes a while to show up. As they walked toward the parking lot, Rosa realized that her simple act of kindness had created ripples she never could have imagined. Mr. Garrett's reign of workplace cruelty was over. Other employees would get their jobs back. And she had the chance to help countless other families facing similar injustices. Thank you, Rosa said as they reached her car. For what? For making sure that kindness won, she said simply. Elon smiled. Thank you for reminding me that kindness matters in the first place. Rosa drove home in a daze, her mind spinning with everything that had happened in the past 2 hours. Every few minutes, she had to remind herself that it was all real. The scholarship, the foundation job, Mr. Garrett's firing. It felt like she was living in someone else's life. She parked outside their apartment building and sat in the car for a moment, trying to figure out how to tell Lily. How do you explain to your 16-year-old daughter that her entire future just changed because her mother had coffee with a billionaire? Rosa climbed the stairs to their apartment, her hands shaking as she unlocked the door. The smell of microwave popcorn greeted her, along with the sound of Lily's voice. "Mom, you're home! I was just talking to Jessica about our chemistry test tomorrow." Lily appeared in the hallway with her phone pressed to her ear. "Can I call you back?" she said into the phone. "My mom just got home and she looks weird." Lily hung up and studied Rosa's face with concern. "Are you okay? How did the job interview go? Wait, you look like you've been crying. Was it that bad?" "Sit down, sweetheart," Rosa said, her voice trembling slightly. "We need to talk." Lily's face immediately filled with worry. "Oh no. What happened? Did someone get hurt?" "No one got hurt," Rosa said quickly. "But something incredible happened. Something I'm not sure you're going to believe." They sat at the kitchen table where just yesterday Rosa had delivered the worst news of Lily's young life. The college brochures were still scattered across the surface, and Rosa could see that Lily had been working on scholarship applications. "You remember yesterday when I told you about the man I helped at the hospital?" Rosa began. "The one who got me fired?" "Eddie," Lily said. "The one whose friend was sick." "Well," Rosa took a deep breath. "It turns out Eddie isn't his real name." Lily looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean the man I gave a sandwich to. The man I sat and talked with. The man who got me fired." Rosa paused, still hardly believing it herself. "That man was Elon Musk." Lily stared at her mother for several long seconds. Then she blinked. Then she stared some more. "Mom," Lily said gently, "I think maybe you're having some kind of stress reaction. You know, from losing your job. Maybe we should call Aunt Marie or—" "I'm not having a breakdown," Rosa interrupted. "I know how crazy it sounds, but it's true. I had coffee with Elon Musk this afternoon. He told me who he really was." Lily's expression shifted from concern to disbelief. "Mom, that's impossible. Elon Musk doesn't just hang out in hospital cafeterias, eating sandwiches with random people. He does when his closest friend is dying, and he's been sitting by her bedside for 3 days straight," Rosa said quietly. Something in Rosa's tone made Lily pause. Her daughter was brilliant and could usually tell when someone was lying or confused, but Rosa's voice carried a certainty that made Lily look at her more carefully. "You're serious," Lily said slowly. "Completely serious." "Prove it," Lily said. "If you really met Elon Musk, prove it." Rosa pulled out her phone and showed Lily the email confirmation from MIT. "He got you a full scholarship to MIT, sweetheart. Full tuition, room and board, everything." Lily grabbed the phone and stared at the screen. Rosa watched her daughter's face as she read the official email, seeing the exact moment when disbelief turned to shock. "This is real," Lily whispered. "It's real." "MIT," Lily said, her voice getting higher. "Full scholarship to MIT." "Full scholarship to MIT," Rosa confirmed. Lily suddenly jumped up from her chair and started pacing around the small kitchen. "This is insane! This is completely insane! I'm going to MIT!" "You're going to MIT," Rosa said, tears of joy starting to flow. "Because you gave Elon Musk a sandwich." "Because I gave Elon Musk a sandwich," Rosa laughed through her tears. Lily stopped pacing and stared at her mother. "Wait, if he got me a scholarship just for you being nice to him, what did he do for you?" Rosa took another deep breath. "He offered me a job." "What kind of job?" "Running a foundation. A foundation that helps families like ours who face unfair circumstances. Lily sat back down hard in her chair. He offered you a job running a foundation? With a salary of $120,000 a year. This time Lily's mouth fell completely open. She stared at Rosa for a full minute without speaking. "Mom," she finally said, "yesterday we were worried about paying rent. Today I have a full scholarship to MIT, and you have a six-figure job offer." "I know it's overwhelming," Rosa said. "Overwhelming?" Lily's voice cracked. "Mom, this is like winning the lottery. This is like a miracle," Rosa finished softly. Lily suddenly burst into tears. Not sad tears, but tears of pure relief and joy and disbelief all mixed together. Rosa reached across the table and took her daughter's hands. "It's really happening," Lily asked through her tears. "It's really happening. I can study environmental science at MIT. You can study environmental science at MIT. And you don't have to work 2 jobs anymore? I don't have to work 2 jobs anymore." Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What's he like? Elon Musk, I mean. Is he as smart as everyone says?" Rosa thought about how to describe her conversation with Eddie. "He's kind and sad about his friend. And he really believes that small acts of kindness can change the world." "He's right," Lily said firmly. "Your small act of kindness just changed our world completely." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. "Mom," Lily said quietly, "are you going to take the job?" "I think so," Rosa said. "It's scary because I've never done anything like it before. But if I can help other families the way he helped us—" "You should take it," Lily said without hesitation. "You know what it's like to struggle. You know what it's like to work hard and still not have enough. You're exactly the right person for that job." "You really think so?" "I know so," Lily said firmly. "Mom, you've spent your whole life taking care of me and putting everyone else first. This is your chance to do something amazing for yourself while still helping people." Rosa felt her heart swell with love and pride. Her daughter was not only brilliant but wise beyond her years. "There's one more thing," Rosa said with a small smile. "He wants to meet you." "Elon Musk wants to meet me?" Lily's voice squeaked. "He wants to talk to you about your environmental science interests. His companies work on exactly the kind of projects you want to study." Lily put her head in her hands. "I can't believe this is my life now." "Neither can I," Rosa admitted. They talked for another hour, with Lily asking dozens of questions about Rosa's conversation with Elon and what the foundation job would involve. By the time they finished talking, both of them were emotionally exhausted, but incredibly hopeful. "Mom," Lily said as they prepared dinner together, "I'm proud of you." "Proud of me for what?" "For being the kind of person who helps a stranger even when it costs you everything," Lily said seriously. "For teaching me that doing the right thing matters more than protecting yourself." Rosa hugged her daughter tightly. "I love you, sweetheart." "I love you too, Mom. And I'm so glad you gave that man a sandwich." As they ate dinner together, Rosa realized that for the first time in years, she wasn't worried about tomorrow. Instead, she was excited about it. Their simple life was about to become something extraordinary, all because she had chosen kindness when it mattered most. 1 month later, Rosa stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment bedroom, adjusting the collar of her professional blazer. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, confident, well-dressed, purposeful. It was her first official day as director of the Ripple Effect Foundation, and she could hardly believe how much her life had changed in just 4 weeks. The new apartment was 3 times the size of their old place, with a real dining room, 2 full bathrooms, and a kitchen that didn't require Rosa to turn sideways to open the refrigerator. But the best part was Lily's new bedroom, which had enough space for a proper desk, bookshelves, and all the college preparation materials that now filled their lives with hope instead of worry. "Mom, you look amazing!" Lily called from the kitchen, where she was making breakfast before her summer classes at the local community college. Elon had arranged for her to take advanced chemistry and environmental science courses to prepare for MIT in the fall. "I feel like I'm playing dress-up," Rosa admitted, walking into the kitchen that still felt too good to be true. "You look like exactly what you are," Lily said, handing her mother a cup of coffee in a real ceramic mug instead of the chipped ones they'd used for years. The director of a foundation that's going to change people's lives. Rosa had spent the past month in intensive training, learning about nonprofit management, grant processes, and foundation operations. Elon had hired consultants to teach her everything from budget oversight to public speaking. It had been overwhelming at times, but Rosa discovered she had a natural talent for understanding people's needs and making decisions about how to help them. "Are you nervous about your first day?" Lily asked. "Terrified," Rosa admitted, "but also excited. We reviewed 3 applications yesterday, and all of them are families just like we were. Single parents working multiple jobs, kids with dreams they can't afford, people who just need a fair chance. And now you get to be the person who gives them that chance," Lily said with pride. Rosa drove to downtown Detroit, still amazed that she owned a reliable car with functioning air conditioning and a radio that worked. The foundation office was on the 15th floor of a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city. "Good morning, Rosa," said Jennifer Martinez, the foundation's program coordinator. Jennifer was a recent college graduate with a social work degree who had been hired to help Rosa manage the day-to-day operations. "Good morning, Jennifer. Any new applications come in overnight?" 12 new ones, Jennifer said, handing Rosa a stack of folders, including one that I think you'll find particularly interesting. Rosa settled into her office, an actual office with a door and a window, and a desk large enough to spread out paperwork. The walls were decorated with photos of families the foundation had already helped, along with thank you letters written in children's handwriting. The first application was from Maria Santos, a nurse's aide whose husband had died in a construction accident. She was working 3 jobs to support her 2 children and couldn't afford the certification courses she needed to become a full nurse. The foundation could pay for her education and provide temporary financial support while she completed her training. "Approved," Rosa said, making notes in the file. This was exactly the kind of situation the foundation existed to address. The second application was from David Kim, a factory worker who had been injured on the job. His workers' compensation barely covered basic expenses, and his 12-year-old daughter was a gifted musician who couldn't afford violin lessons. The foundation could cover the music education and help with living expenses while David recovered. "Approved," Rosa said again, feeling the same satisfaction she'd once felt from serving a perfect meal to a hungry hospital visitor. The third application made Rosa pause. Robert Williams was a janitor at Medicor Hospital who had been written up by his supervisor for taking too long to comfort a crying child in the pediatric ward. The write-up could lead to his termination, and he was asking for legal assistance to fight what seemed like an unfair disciplinary action. Rosa recognized the name of the supervisor, Mr. Garrett's replacement, who apparently hadn't learned from his predecessor's mistakes. "Jennifer," Rosa called, "can you get me the phone number for the head of human resources at Medicor Hospital?" 20 minutes later, Rosa was on the phone with Mrs. Patricia Coleman, the woman who had taken over the Employee Relations Department after Mr. Garrett's firing. Mrs. Coleman, this is Rosa Chen from the Ripple Effect Foundation. I'm calling about one of your employees, Robert Williams. Oh, yes, Mrs. Coleman said warmly. Rosa, it's so good to hear from you. The board has asked me to tell you again that your position as cafeteria supervisor is still available if you're ever interested. Thank you, but I'm very happy in my current role, Rosa said. I'm calling because Mr. Williams has applied to our foundation for assistance with what appears to be workplace discrimination. Let me look into this immediately, Mrs. Coleman said. Any employee who shows compassion to patients should be commended, not disciplined. Can you send me the details? By the end of the day, Robert Williams had received a formal apology from the hospital. The disciplinary action had been removed from his record, and he'd been recommended for a commendation for his patient care. The foundation didn't need to provide legal assistance after all. Sometimes a phone call from the right person was enough to solve a problem. How was your first day? Lily asked when Rosa got home that evening. We helped 3 families today, Rosa said, sinking into their new couch with a sense of deep satisfaction. 3 families who were facing unfair situations, and now they have hope again. Just like we did, Lily said, curling up next to her mother. Just like we did. Rosa's phone buzzed with a text message from Elon. Heard about your first day from Jennifer. Proud of you. Sarah would have loved meeting you. She always said the best leaders are the ones who lead with their hearts. Rosa smiled and texted back, "Thank you for making this possible. How is Sarah doing?" "Much better. The doctors say she's responding well to treatment. She wants to volunteer for the foundation when she's feeling stronger." Over the following weeks, Rosa settled into a rhythm that felt both challenging and natural. She reviewed applications, made decisions about funding, and gradually built relationships with other organizations that served struggling families. The foundation grew from helping individual families to developing programs that could help entire communities. One morning, Rosa got a call that made her heart race with excitement. "Mrs. Chen? This is Dr. Williams from MIT. I'm calling about your daughter Lily." Rosa's first thought was panic. Had something happened to Lily? "Is everything okay?" Rosa asked quickly. "Oh yes, everything is wonderful," Dr. Williams assured her. "I'm calling because Lily's summer coursework has been so impressive that we'd like to offer her an opportunity to start her MIT studies a semester early, in January instead of next fall." Rosa sat down hard in her office chair. "She's that advanced?" "She's extraordinary," Dr. Williams said. "Her professors say they've never seen a student with such natural insight into environmental systems. We'd like her to join a special research program that typically only accepts graduate students." When Rosa called Lily with the news, her daughter's scream of joy could probably be heard in the next building. "Early admission to MIT," Lily shouted. "Mom, this is incredible." "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," Rosa said, tears streaming down her face. That evening, as Rosa looked around their beautiful apartment and thought about Lily's accelerated path to MIT, she marveled at how completely their lives had transformed. A month ago, she'd been a cafeteria worker struggling to pay rent. Now she was running a foundation that had already helped 57 families, living in comfort she'd never imagined, and watching her daughter's dreams not just come true, but exceed every expectation they'd ever dared to have. Rosa walked to her jewelry box and pulled out Eddie's business card, the one she'd torn and taped back together on that desperate night when everything seemed hopeless. She looked at the crease, running through the phone number, and smiled. Such a small thing. A business card from a stranger, but it had changed everything. Rosa carefully placed the card back in the jewelry box, next to her wedding ring and a photo of Lily at her high school graduation. Some things were too precious to throw away, even when they'd served their purpose, especially when they'd served their purpose so beautifully. Tomorrow, the foundation would review applications from 15 more families. Tomorrow, Rosa would have the chance to change 15 more lives. Tomorrow, she would continue the work that had begun with a simple sandwich and a moment of human kindness. Rosa Chen had learned that sometimes the most extraordinary changes begin with the most ordinary acts of compassion. And sometimes, when you choose kindness, even when it costs you everything, the universe finds a way to give you back far more than you ever lost. 6 months later, the grand ballroom of the Detroit Renaissance Center sparkled with crystal chandeliers and elegant decorations in shades of gold and blue. Rosa stood at the podium, looking out at 300 of Detroit's most influential business leaders, philanthropists, and community members who had gathered for the Ripple Effect Foundation's first annual gala. She still couldn't quite believe this was her life. 6 months ago, she'd been serving food in a hospital cafeteria. Tonight, she was addressing mayors, CEOs, and celebrities about the power of compassion to change the world. "Good evening, everyone," Rosa began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. 6 months ago, I was a single mother working 2 jobs and struggling to afford my daughter's college dreams. Tonight, I want to tell you how a simple act of kindness changed not just my life, but the lives of hundreds of families across our community. The audience listened intently as Rosa shared her story. She told them about the exhausted man she'd met in the hospital cafeteria, about losing her job for showing him compassion, and about the incredible transformation that followed when that stranger revealed his true identity. The Ripple Effect Foundation has helped 347 families in just 6 months, Rosa continued, her voice growing stronger with pride. We've paid for medical treatments, funded educational programs, helped people keep their homes, and supported small businesses started by hard-working immigrants. But more importantly, we've shown people that their struggles matter, that their dreams are worth fighting for. The audience erupted in applause. Rosa spotted Lily in the front row, beautiful in her navy blue dress beaming with pride. Her daughter was home for winter break from MIT, where she was already working on groundbreaking research in sustainable energy systems. "Every family we help reminds me that kindness creates ripples," Rosa said. "When you help one person, they help another and another, until a single act of compassion becomes a wave of change that reaches farther than we ever imagined." As Rosa concluded her speech, she was surprised to see Elon rising from his seat at the head table. He approached the podium with that same gentle smile she remembered from their first meeting. "Thank you, Rosa," Elon said, taking the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I asked to speak tonight because there's something about our foundation's origin story that Rosa doesn't know. Something I've never told her." Rosa looked at him with surprise and curiosity. In all their meetings over the past 6 months, Elon had never mentioned keeping anything from her. "Rosa, you know that I was at the hospital that night because my friend Sarah was dying," Elon continued. "What you don't know is why I was really there for 3 straight days, and what I was considering doing when you found me." The ballroom fell completely silent. Rosa felt her heart rate quicken. "Sarah wasn't just my assistant for 7 years," Elon said, his voice becoming thick with emotion. "She was the closest thing to family I had. When my companies were struggling in the early days, when the media was attacking everything I tried to build, when I felt like giving up on my dreams to help humanity, Sarah was the one who reminded me why my work mattered." Rosa listened with growing understanding, remembering the pain in Eddie's eyes that morning in the cafeteria. 3 days before Rosa met me, Sarah had told me something that changed everything. Elon continued. She said she was proud of what we'd built together, but she was worried that success had made me forget about the individual people we were supposed to be helping. She said I'd become so focused on big projects and global solutions that I'd stopped seeing the everyday heroes right in front of me. The audience was captivated, hanging on every word. That night, as Sarah fought for her life, I realized she was right, Elon said. I had billions of dollars and multiple companies, but I'd lost touch with the simple human connections that make life meaningful. I was so focused on saving humanity in the abstract that I'd forgotten how to help individual human beings. Rosa felt tears starting to form as she began to understand the deeper significance of their meeting. I made a decision that night, Elon continued, looking directly at Rosa. If Sarah died, I was going to step down from my companies. I was going to sell everything and disappear, because I felt like I'd failed at the most important thing, being a good person who cares about others. A collective gasp went through the audience. Rosa's hand flew to her mouth in shock. I wandered down to that cafeteria in the darkest moment of my life, Elon said. I was literally planning to give up on everything I'd worked for, everything I'd dreamed of achieving. And then I met Rosa. Elon turned to face her directly, his eyes bright with gratitude and emotion. Rosa, you didn't just give me food that morning. You gave me back my faith in humanity. You showed me that there are still people who care about strangers, who choose kindness even when it costs them everything. You reminded me that the work we do only matters if it comes from a place of genuine compassion. Rosa was crying now, understanding for the first time the full weight of what had happened between them. Your simple act of kindness didn't just change your life, Elon continued. It saved my entire mission. If you hadn't reminded me that good people still exist, I would have walked away from SpaceX, from Tesla, from every project designed to help humanity's future. Thousands of jobs would have been lost. Years of progress on sustainable energy and space exploration would have stopped. The audience was silent, absorbing the magnitude of what they were hearing. But more than that, Elon said, his voice breaking slightly, you showed me what Sarah had been trying to tell me, that the most important changes in the world start with how we treat each other in small, everyday moments. Elon paused, collecting himself before continuing. The Ripple Effect Foundation isn't just about helping families like Rosa's, he said. It's about preserving and multiplying the kind of kindness that Rosa showed me. It's about making sure that good people aren't punished for doing right. It's about creating a world where compassion is rewarded instead of penalized. Rosa wiped her tears with a tissue someone handed her, overwhelmed by the realization that her simple gesture had prevented such a massive loss to the world. Sarah recovered, by the way, Elon said with a smile. She's here tonight at table 12, and she insists that Rosa is her hero. She says Rosa saved both of us. Rosa looked toward table 12 and saw an elegant woman in her 50s waving at her with tears in her eyes. Sarah mouthed, "Thank you," across the room. So when people ask me why I started this foundation, Elon concluded, I tell them it's because a cafeteria worker named Rosa Chen reminded me that saving the world starts with saving each other. One sandwich at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One person at a time. The ballroom erupted in the loudest applause Rosa had ever heard. People stood, cheering not just for the foundation's work, but for the incredible story of how human compassion had preserved one man's mission to help humanity. As Elon handed the microphone back to Rosa, he leaned close and whispered, "Thank you for saving my soul, Rosa. Everything good that comes from my companies from now on exists because you chose kindness when I needed it most." Rosa took the microphone with shaking hands, looking out at the standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. "I want to thank everyone for your support of our foundation," she said when the applause finally died down. "But I also want you to remember that every single person in this room has the power to change someone's life. You don't need billions of dollars or famous companies. You just need to see people who are struggling and choose to help." She looked at Lily, then at Sarah, then at Elon, and finally out at the audience of potential world changers. "Sometimes the smallest acts create the biggest changes," Rosa said, echoing words Elon had spoken to her months ago. "A smile to someone who's crying, a meal for someone who's hungry, a moment of your time for someone who's lonely. These things cost us almost nothing, but they can save someone's entire world." As Rosa left the stage to thunderous applause, she realized that her story had become bigger than just her own transformation. It had become proof that kindness wasn't weakness. It was the most powerful force for change in the world. And it all started with a sandwich and a cup of coffee shared between two strangers who needed each other more than they knew. 1 year later, Rosa stood in the familiar hallway of Medicor Hospital. But this time she wasn't wearing a hairnet and apron. Instead, she wore a professional suit and carried a folder of certificates as she prepared to speak at the hospital's annual Employee Appreciation event. The transformation felt surreal, returning to the place where her old life had ended, as the guest speaker for their celebration of workplace kindness. The cafeteria had been transformed for the event, decorated with banners that read, "Compassion in Action," and "Every employee makes a difference." Rosa smiled as she recognized many faces. Sandy from the register, Miguel from maintenance, Mrs. Foster who had taken over Rosa's afternoon shift. They all looked happier than she remembered, working under management that valued their humanity, instead of treating them like machines. "Rosa," Dr. Peterson approached with a warm smile. "It's so wonderful to see you back here. We've all been following the Foundation's incredible work." "Thank you, Dr. Peterson," Rosa replied. "It feels good to be back, though very different from the last time I was here." Mrs. Coleman, the head of Human Resources, joined them. "Rosa, I can't thank you enough for helping us transform our workplace culture. The changes we've made because of your situation have improved morale throughout the entire hospital." Rosa looked around the cafeteria, where it all began. The same tables where she'd once wiped down surfaces now hosted employees sharing stories of kindness they'd witnessed. The same corner booth where she'd sat with Eddie was occupied by a nurse, comforting a worried family member. Exactly the kind of compassion that was now encouraged rather than punished. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mrs. Coleman announced to the assembled staff, "please welcome our guest speaker, Rosa Chen, director of the Ripple Effect Foundation." The applause was warm and genuine. Rosa approached the microphone, looking out at faces that represented every department of the hospital. Doctors, nurses, custodians, food service workers, administrators, people who had watched her escorted out in shame, now welcomed her back as an inspiration. 2 years ago, I stood in this very room as a cafeteria worker, Rosa began. I served your meals, cleaned your tables, and took pride in being part of a team that cared for our community's health and well-being. She paused, looking at the table where she used to work. I also sat in this room with a stranger who needed kindness, and I made a choice that cost me my job, but changed my life forever. Today, I want to talk about how that choice created ripples that are still spreading, still changing lives, still proving that compassion is the most powerful force we have. Rosa shared updated statistics from the foundation. 847 families helped, 23 community programs established, over $2 million distributed to people facing unfair circumstances. But more importantly, she talked about the culture change that had begun right here at Medicor Hospital. After my termination, this hospital made a commitment to supporting employee compassion rather than punishing it. Rosa said, "You've created the Medicor Kindness Initiative, which has been copied by hospitals across the country. Patient satisfaction scores have increased by 40%. Employee retention is at an all-time high. And most importantly, families going through the worst moments of their lives know they'll be treated with dignity and care." She gestured to the banner above the serving line that read, "Kindness is our policy." That banner represents a fundamental shift in how we think about healthcare. Rosa continued, "It says that efficiency and compassion aren't competing values. They're partners. It says that the person serving food is just as important as the person performing surgery, because they're both part of healing." In the audience, Rosa spotted Robert Williams, the janitor she'd helped through the foundation months ago. He was now the hospital's patient comfort coordinator, a new position created to ensure that non-medical staff could spend time supporting worried families without fear of disciplinary action. But the ripples haven't stopped with hospitals, Rosa said. The Ripple Effect Foundation has inspired similar programs across the country. In Chicago, there's the Second Chance Foundation, started by a teacher who was fired for spending her own money on student supplies. In Phoenix, there's the Dignity at Work initiative, founded by a retail worker who was terminated for helping an elderly customer. Rosa pulled out her phone and showed a slide with a map of the United States, dotted with pins representing kindness-based organizations that had been inspired by her story. Each of these programs was started by someone who faced unfair consequences. For doing the right thing, Rosa explained, people who refused to let cruelty have the last word, who turned their pain into purpose. The audience was captivated, many wiping away tears as they understood the magnitude of change that had begun in their own workplace. "My daughter Lily is now in her second year at MIT," Rosa continued, her voice bright with pride. "She's developing technology that could revolutionize renewable energy storage. Last month, she called me with incredible news. Elon Musk's companies want to fund her research and offer her an internship that could lead to breakthrough innovations in sustainable technology." Rosa paused to let the full-circle nature of the story sink in. "The man I helped in this cafeteria is now helping my daughter save the planet," she said. "That's how ripples work. Kindness flows forward, multiplies, and comes back in ways we never expect." As Rosa concluded her speech, she shared one final story that brought the audience to their feet. Last week, a 7-year-old girl named Emma sent the foundation a letter, Rosa said, pulling out a piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings. Emma's family was helped by our foundation after her father lost his job for staying home with her when she had pneumonia. In her letter, Emma wrote, "Thank you for helping my daddy keep his job at the new place. Now, I want to help families too, when I grow up." Rosa held up the drawing, which showed stick figures holding hands around a heart labeled kindness. Emma drew this picture of what she calls the kindness circle, Rosa said. She understood, something that sometimes takes adults years to learn, that helping others isn't just about solving their problems. It's about showing them that they matter, that they're not alone, that someone cares about their story. As the event concluded, Rosa was surrounded by hospital employees sharing their own stories of how the culture change had affected their work. Nurses talked about having permission to spend extra time with scared patients. Custodians described being thanked for their contributions to healing. Food service workers spoke about taking pride in nourishing families during difficult times. "You started something here that's bigger than any of us imagined," Sandy said, hugging Rosa tightly. Every day, we remember that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. As Rosa prepared to leave, she took one last walk through the cafeteria. She paused at the corner booth where she'd sat with Eddie, running her hand along the table where two lives had intersected and changed the trajectory of everything that followed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Mom, just saw the news. Coverage of your hospital speech. So proud of you. Did you know MIT is starting a Rosa Chen Scholarship for students whose parents work in food service? Your ripples keep spreading." Rosa smiled, tears of joy streaming down her face. She thought about Mrs. Patterson, her elderly neighbor who now volunteered for the Foundation's senior support program. She thought about Mr. Garrett, who had written her a letter of apology and was now working at a food bank, learning about service instead of power. But mostly, she thought about all the families she'd never meet, whose lives had been touched by the ripples of kindness that started with a simple sandwich shared on the worst morning of her life. Rosa walked out of Medicore Hospital for the second time, but this time she left as proof that ordinary people doing ordinary acts of kindness can create extraordinary change. The woman who had once worried about having enough money for groceries was now ensuring that kindness itself would never go hungry. As she drove home through the Detroit streets where her new life had begun, Rosa Chen smiled, knowing that somewhere, someone was making the choice to help a stranger, and the ripples of compassion would continue spreading long after her story was over. Some legacies are measured in money or fame, but the best legacies are measured in the kindness they inspire in others. And in that measure, Rosa Chen's legacy would be immeasurable. And that's the incredible true story of how one simple act of kindness changed everything. Rosa Chen's sandwich and cup of coffee didn't just help a stranger. It saved Elon Musk's mission to help humanity and created a foundation that has now helped thousands of families around the world. This story proves that you never know how your small acts of kindness might change someone's life forever. Where are you listening from today? Drop your city and country in the comments below. I love seeing our amazing global community of kind-hearted people. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of compassion, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more inspiring stories that prove kindness always wins in the end. Let's spread this message of hope together. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that their kindness matters, no matter how small it seems. And don't forget to click on the video appearing on your screen right now. It's another incredible story about ordinary people doing extraordinary things through the simple power of human compassion. Remember, your next act of kindness could change the world. You never know who might need it most. Thank you for listening, and keep spreading kindness wherever you go.